Hey you witches, today's something a little different. I just wanted to do a video response to a couple of comments that I got on my last video, which was sort of about, checking your DNA, checking your ancestry to build a folkloric practice. And I think there was a few points that I didn't really go into a lot of detail, and I feel like maybe a couple people sort of misinterpreted what I was saying. So basically, my video was to try to call out white appropriators and give us white folks a suggestion on where to start as a white person if you don't want to appropriate from people of color, okay? What I think we need to consider is that, and I'm talking about in North America, we're all kind of grown up to become soccer moms in suburbs, and we weren't raised with any sort of cultural history other than being Canadian or American. And at the end of the day, what does that really mean? There is no, I don't have any folkloric information on Canadian that I can build a witchcraft practice on. There's lots of things I can build a witchcraft practice on, but if I'm looking for folklore, I'm looking for, you know, an ancestral connection, Canadian isn't gonna cut it. So basically, yeah, that's sort of what I was kind of trying to address, this idea of where do I start? Now, some people like Dolores Audley, sorry, I keep pulling my notes. Dolores Audley, she had a great point, right? She's like, listen, I grew up in Appalachia. I'm living in New York now. Why would I want to go back to my DNA when I've never even left the country? Like, it doesn't make sense. So she has two good points there. First of all, Dolores, you are one of the exceptions, right? You are a white person who did grow up with a cultural history in Appalachia. Appalachian folk magic is powerful stuff. And if that's something you're connected to, that's awesome. But the majority of us don't have that history. So no, you don't necessarily need to go back to your ancestry or your DNA if you've already found something that works for you like that. Now, you had said, why would I want to be, you know, go back to my DNA when I've never even left the country? I've never even been to, like, I think he had said Germany, right? I'm German, I've never been to Germany. Why the heck would I even want to do that? So I do agree that if we're going to practice based on our ancestral roots, that it's important to make a connection to our country of origin. But I would disagree that that means that we necessarily have to have visited there. I've never been to Scotland, but I feel very connected to Scotland. Now, ideally, that would be perfect. I mean, it's on my bucket list. I will be going one day. But fair enough, right? That's not always an option in life for everybody. So how else can you connect with your place of origin? You can learn about the history and the folklore, not just in general, but from actual authors from the country that you're, you know, actual Scottish authors, actual German authors, right? Learn about the history and the folklore through local sources. Support local businesses when you're buying your supplies. You know, if you're buying German supplies, buy them from a German vendor. There's lots of ways that you can kind of build that into your practice where you're supporting your culture, your, you know, country of origin. So you don't necessarily have to go there in person. Although ideally that would be great. And then I had an excellent comment from Crafty Witch, and it was very long and there was a lot of stuff to sort of digest, but that's what the rest of my video will be about. So Crafty Witch, first of all, you have a really interesting DNA breakdown. I think that's really cool. But no, I don't mean to suggest that people should be restricted to just our DNA. That was definitely not the point of my video. I didn't mean to imply that, so I apologize if that's how you took it. Again, my video was just a call out to white appropriators and suggestions on where to start as a white person if you don't want to appropriate from people of color. In my opinion, people of color, on the other hand, can pull from anywhere they please, right? They've got their culture, right? Their DNA, that kind of an idea. They've also got cultures that they've been colonized into, wherever they might be, right? So they have a right to pull from all those different sources. I, on the other hand, having been raised white bread and butter in Canada, soccer mom here, don't get to turn around and go, oh, I think I'm just gonna start doing voodoo. it doesn't work that way, right? I don't have that option. People of color do. So if you have like an African American practicing Ancestry, I think that's fine. I don't see any issue with that, right? I also think that white people who don't necessarily have a connection to Norse culture could practice Ancestry if that's something that appealed to them. It's an open practice, right? And that's something to consider, is that many POC practices are closed practices, meaning you have to be born into them, it's like hereditary, or you need to be initiated into them by a person of color in that tradition. Now we're kind of getting into nuances here, which again, my original video, it was very high level. And there are always exceptions to rules. I think a community connection is one of them. So you're talking about your cousin's husband and he, right, made a true connection to that Native American community. And I think that that's beautiful. I think that's great. I'll use my own mother as an example, okay? She taught on a band reserve here in Alberta for many, many years and became a very honored member of their community. She was gifted on many occasions all sorts of interesting cultural artifacts. And not only was she gifted them, but taught how to use them. So she has like a smudging set, she has, you know, drums, masks, all kinds of really interesting things. And I think she has every right to display them in her home, to use them as she's been instructed. She has a community connection to that culture. Now, when my mother passes away and I inherit those items, does that mean I get to go and use them in my witchcraft practice? In my opinion, no. I don't have a connection to that community. My mother did, right? If I do it, that's appropriating. So again, there's nuances, right? And I agree. It is not about the color of your skin. I did not mean that. I mean, I talk about the white people because we're just white, but I don't mean that for all people. It's about the color of your skin. I didn't mean to suggest that that was all that goes into it. Again, I was just wanting to give white people, specifically white people in North America, an idea of how to connect with their own cultural history as a means of developing a witchcraft practice, especially if they weren't brought up within a cultural history. If we're just Canadian or American, where do we go with that, right? And I think a lot of times what happens is we see some really cool video on TikTok and we're like, oh, that's really cool, this guy, and he's got this feather and he's smudging and oh, that's cool, I'm gonna do that. And we don't use our critical thinking skills, and that's how appropriation happens. So again, I think your comment again was just a lot more nuanced, and I appreciate that a lot. In it, the whole thing is a lot more nuanced than I touched on in my video. My video was just a high level, don't be bad. So yeah, thank you for bringing up all those really amazing points. It was just so much more than I could like type it all out. I think, and another comment you had was about if it's just about skin color, which it's not, then right, Christianity would only be practiced by people from Middle Eastern descent. And that's where I would turn around and say, but also you have to consider Christianity is an open practice. Very open. They want to like assimilate everybody. So again, right, it's looking at that culture of origin and is it an open or a closed practice? And Christianity is definitely an open practice and looking to bring in everyone and anyone that they can. So yeah, it's again, a bit more nuanced than just the color of your skin, just the culture that you were raised in, etc. There's a lot that goes into it. So anyways, I'm going to end this now. I just sort of wanted to address those two comments because they were very thought-provoking, and I thought they were good discussions that needed to be had. So yeah, thanks so much, you guys. I'll be back tomorrow on Wednesday with another regular video. Mwah! Thanks, guys.